Welcome to the Biotech Startups podcast by Exceeder. Join us as we speak with first-time founders, serial entrepreneurs, and experienced investors about the challenges and triumphs of running a biotech startup, from pre-seed to IPO, with your host, John Chi.
My guest today is Quin Wills, CSO and co-founder of Ochre Bio, a pioneering biotechnology company developing RNA therapies for chronic liver diseases. Using a combination of genomic deep phenotyping, precision RNA medicine, and testing in live human donor livers, Ochre is developing therapies for liver health challenges ranging from increasing donor liver supply to reducing cirrhosis complications. In addition to his work at Ochre, Quin is also a highly accomplished academic with a medical degree from Wits University and doctoral degrees from Cambridge and Oxford in computational biology, mathematics, and statistical genomics. Along with his academic accomplishments, Quin also co-founded SimuGen and has worked at the University College London, the Mayo Clinic, and Novo Nordisk before he went on to co-found Ochre Bio. Quin's diverse experiences offer a wealth of insights that everyone can draw inspiration from. Over the next 4 episodes, we cover a wide range of topics, including Quin's early years growing up in Johannesburg, his experience as a research scientist at UCL, his pursuit of dual degrees at Oxford University, and his journey founding and building multiple biotechs. He also shares insights into Ochre Bio's evolution and their unexpected journey through Y Combinator and more. Today, we'll chat about Quin's childhood, the importance of seizing opportunities when they arise, and challenging the status quo. We'll also touch on his time at UCL, his transition from medical school to studying genetics while at Wits University, getting his MPhil in biology at Cambridge, and his early exposure and passion for bioinformatics and big data during the Human Genome Project era. Without further ado, let's dive into this episode of the Biotech Startups podcast. Quin, so good to see you. Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too. I believe we both had a very calm one.
Yes, the ideal New Year's, the ideal New Year's. Well, thanks again for coming on the podcast.
No problem.
The team and I were really kind of like thinking about, where to start and where would be a fun place to start. And, as we were digging in, we really thought it'd be great to be able to turn the hands back, all the way to the early days and really learn a little bit more about your upbringing and how it has influenced your leadership style and business philosophy.
No, very, very happy to. I mean, where would you like to start? I mean, I was a gay kid raised in a loving but religious home in, the rougher suburbs of Johannesburg during apartheid. But I don't think any of that very directly impacted my leadership, style and philosophy. I think something that I've come to embrace over the last decade is this concept of situational leadership. I'm a big believer in that. I think it's a very tough form of leadership to practice. If anyone works it out, let me know, because I think I still suck at it. But it is something that's so important when you're starting young companies, because sometimes you do need to be visionary, and sometimes you do need to be more transactional. But guys, this is where it's going. The authority says, this is it, But when I do try and make the effort at least once a quarter to really meet with everyone in the company, including junior team members, and it is an opportunity more for the mentoring style of leadership. And I've come to realize I'm a bit of a stuck record, because I tend to I'm too consistent.
Yeah.
And I do tend to harp on 2 topics, and I have realized over the years that those 2 topics came from sort of a lot of my early life as a kid, and one is always encouraging scientists to be action prone. That part of our brain gets damaged with PhDs. You get told to be analytical and slow it down and really tease it apart, and it gets beaten out of you. And for me, that's never, I don't want to say it's never been an issue. That's pretentious, but it's, some would say it is an issue. But I've always been a very action prone individual, and really, and I know where it started. My granddad, on his dying bed, he looked at me. So my grandparents were English, so that's my connection with the UK. And they left the UK after the war. They were, tough class system, and they wanted to reinvent their lives in South Africa. So really interesting people. And my granddad gave me this advice on his deathbed, saying, never forget that opportunity in life is like trying to grab the hair of a bald man with a beard. Once he's walked past, it's too late. And it's such a bizarre analogy, but it really stuck with me, really stuck with me. And that heavily influenced me there on out, to always be, take the opportunity when it arises, because, you never know when it's going to happen next. And that's something that I really try to encourage in scientists a little bit more, and the other thing that I just annoy everybody with is this, like, just because everyone says it works like that, is there not a different way to do this? The challenging way of doing things. And that this is going to make you laugh, and I don't know why this stuck with me, but it was a moment that really stuck with me as a kid. I was in my second year of school, and our teacher was teaching us some mathematical problems, early days of maths, but basic, expansion on timetables and stuff like that. And I remember giving us the lesson and then leaving the class and giving us an exercises to do. And I remember we were naughty kids. The moment teacher left, we would walk around and talk, and I remember the whole class being so convinced that what she meant was one thing, like the whole class telling me, and I was convinced about it. No, this is how it is. And everybody told me, that, and they completely convinced me. And then I changed it to their way, and the teacher came back, and my way was the right way, and everyone else was wrong. And that's not me just saying I was right, everyone was wrong. But for me, it was again another one, and it really stuck with me. I can remember that exact moment in detail, because it was one of those big universe moments where it's like, just because everyone says it's that way doesn't mean it's that way. Always challenge and think about, and then of course as your brain switches on as a teenager in the unusual country that South Africa was during apartheid, you learn, okay, just because your government says that that's right doesn't make it right. And so there's just an element of that I think I drive the team crazy with. And so perhaps those are my two sort of youthful contributions to the craziness that is me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. I feel the same way. I always joke internally that, like, I do sound like a broken record, but it's like, it's worth repeating. And it's like, also as your company grows and there's more junior people joining who haven't heard kind of the approach, it's always, sorry to the senior folks who have heard it like 100 times, but in order to keep it gelling, you kind of do, it is imperative to bear repeating. And it's exactly like, I think there's a lot of momentum that kind of, and inertia actually, that kind of like both, from the pure physics concept, but just like behavior, like it will stay in motion. So I really love that philosophy. And during your early days in schooling, were you always into science, or was this something that, you developed a love for science at a later point?
Yeah, it's so another funny story. When my teacher asked me what, that time always comes in school. What do you want to be when you grow up? I said, I want to be a medical doctor who does research. I kid you not. I don't know where I got that from. I don't know. I must have read something. But like, which kid? Like, that's kind of
like, oh, that's specific. Like, that is like very specific.
Oh my God, it's such a nonsense as a child. Somebody needed to give me a good smack. And that kind of just always stuck with it. Here I am. I think the details of where I want to be in life, that was shaped by later stages in life. But that was always there. And I think in terms of the science of it, I guess, those of us, and you'll have seen all of this in sort of all the folks you've chatted to, scientists come in lots of different flavors. One of the classic flavors are scientists are people who were good at it. They can think through problems, but they like the challenge. They get incredible satisfaction from a gnarly problem. That was never me. Let me explain. Because I gotta probably sell myself in a little short here. But if you gave me a Rubik's Cube as a kid, I'd got no satisfaction from trying to solve the Rubik's Cube. My satisfaction was peeling off the stickers and putting them back the right way. Okay? Look, I found a hack. Same solution, just easier. So I've never been that kind of scientist. But I didn't quite phrase it like this as a kid, but definitely as an adult, when I had the words to explain it, is I am very driven by sort of moving beyond the current human condition. And I see science as just one of the most amazing schoolings with which to do that, and I still do. I think it's such a, I know it sounds cheesy, but it is such a privilege to be at this evolution of society where I get paid to do this. It's wonderful, and I still love it as old as I am.
Yeah, it's like I think about that too. It like you got to pinch yourself sometimes where you feel like you're almost living like in the sci-fi future, but it's now. Yeah, and you're just like whoa. And then you can like I even sometimes just like thinking back maybe like 10 years ago, and it's like it was markedly different, like markedly different, and the pace in which it changes and like the tools that are now available to scientists, it's like we're spoiled in a way. You're just like I wouldn't, I guess I would say I would not want to go back technologically. I'm like, this is like a great place right now.
We are so privileged right now. I feel like we can get onto this whole debate about AI and planting humans inside. And I'm like, the problem at the moment is not being able to, inability to analyze all the data, and so we need AI. The inability. We are just, the problem is we're reaching a point where we spoil for choice with tools, and it's just people who can creatively think about the right question and then bring the tools in. I mean, it's so much fun. It really, really is, and it's a real pleasure to be in medicine right now.
Absolutely. And so I know in university you went to medical school as well, and you did genetics. Can you talk a little bit about your undergraduate studies and medical school?
Sure. So I did a bit of like an intercalated study. I feel like when I look at a lot of the undergraduates here in Oxford, they all seem so driven and really know what they want. Whereas I was like, this is great. I'm just a number. I could do what I want. And there was an element of that. And so I ended up doing a way too long, protracted, sort of intercalated, a bit of science, a bit of my preclinical years, finished off my honors level in science, then went clinical. And, when I started doing the science side of things, my two majors that I worked with, my major, the one that I took forward then was genetics, but then also microbiology. I just very quickly, of course, lab-based work. So I have a lab-based grounding, but learned very quickly that I love the data side of things. And that's where, that's why I love genetics, because genetics is like a little bit of mathematics at an undergraduate level. And that love for genetics just grew from there.
Very cool. Was that kind of something that you found the spark from within, or was there someone like a professor or a mentor that kind of sparked that flame for you?
I definitely had some very encouraging lecturers who were like, you clearly like this, go with it. I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
It's good to hear, because you're young. I say you're young. I think I probably need to hear it now too, every now and then, somebody to give me a good crack, just go, right, no. This is what you need to do. But it was really helpful in those days to have lecturers who took the time and said, listen, you're clearly loving this. You're doing above average at it. Run with it.
Did you have an undergrad, or I guess like a lab experience that early on? Or was that like where your actual wet lab experience came a little bit, or did it come later?
No, we started right from the very beginning. A classic genetics classes were breeding your own fruit flies. And looking at the genetics of fruit flies. So it was like, I was really like, to be honest, I actually do quite enjoy. People ask me, don't you miss patients? Don't you miss the wet lab? I loved all of that. It's just that you can't do everything in life.
Yeah, exactly. That is something worth repeating too. It's just like and you're talking about like the plethora of tools and just like all the options available. It's kind of this thing where I wish there was like unlimited time in the day, but there's like, if you work backwards, you do need to sleep, and you have to make decisions and have to focus, or else you're just going to be spread too thin for it to be effective in any way. So it sounds like you found everything. Like you're kind of at this point where like you love the wet lab, you love the genetics mathematical component of like research, but you also like the clinical aspect of it too. How did you end up choosing to go to UCL to be a research scientist? Like, what was it that, actually was like, all right, I'm going to do this, like pick a lane, or quote unquote, pick a lane?
Yeah, I hadn't quite pixelated then.
Okay,
There was a
okay.
bit, there was a, there was a bit of it. Let's say that. It makes me sound like I
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
want.
You got it all figured out.
I had it all figured out by the
Yeah.
time I moved to the UK. No, I didn't. No, so I think perhaps the important bit of context there is, by the time I hit the end of medicine in South Africa, I was feeling very frustrated. Not least of which was this was the late 90s. South Africa was at its peak of its AIDS epidemic.
Mm,
And we had a government that did not recognize that this was an issue,
yeah.
and it was super frustrating. I felt very almost burnt out and very disenfranchised. And what am I doing here? I'm putting a plaster on a big wound where,
Yeah. Yeah.
So what did excite me, if I was going to be very honest with myself, in the late 90s, was like, oh, there's this thing called the Human Genome Project that seems to be coming together very nicely. Because
Yeah.
I already then loved the whole story of the academe, the academe panicking when industry was taking the lead, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a wonderful story of science.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, I think I really want to go for the big data stuff, and this is where I want to go. Here's the challenge. I really like in those days, remember bioinformatics didn't really exist in those
No.
days yet.
No.
It did. And we talk about it like it's an
Yeah.
old thing now, but it didn't. I mean, this is
Yeah.
20 years ago, right? And even then, at the beginnings of bioinformatics, people are like, what is it? Do you need to do computer science? Do you need to do mathematics? Do you need to do statistics? I mean, AI wasn't even really a big feature in all of that yet. ML was clustering.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I thought, well, what I'm gonna have to do. I'm gonna have to suck it up, and it is not going to happen in South Africa, and it wasn't going to happen for me. I need to suck it up and go to the UK. But and I suppose, and this is where I'm going to have a little bit of a podium moment, because it's something else I'd like to lecture, particularly the Gen Zs on,
Yeah.
who want promotions every 6 months. We love them, but they
Yeah.
do. And it's like I had to take a very big step back. It wasn't my dream job. With again, love the people I work with. It wasn't genetics, it was microbiology again. And even though the job, I was given the title research scientist because of my qualifications, it was a technician role. I had to take a technician role. So I took a big step back in life. I went so that I could get myself out in the UK. And what I did was during that year, I mean, again, I enjoy the people I work with, lots of great lessons. There was a strong industry focus in that research too. It was therapeutics, which was great. So I enjoyed elements of that. But I really spent the time, any day I could take off, I would jump on a train or a bus and go visit a professor at a university to ask them about what do they think this field is going. And I'm just really, I think it was one of the times in my life where I was just really touched by the kindness of people. I actually look back now, I was like, who were you? Just emailing these professors from nowhere. You were like, there's nobody. And they were like, sure, come over to our office. No, it really was. Like I actually blush now just thinking about it.
Yeah.
But that's what I did. And there were just some really incredible people on the whole spectrum. So the London, Oxford, Cambridge triangle, who took the time to this ignorant South African kid who was like, so bioinformatics, big data. Where is this to go? Where is all? And for me, I was trying to understand the culture, where it's going, and because they were very distinct cultures. There was mathematical biology, which is still its own very unique culture, computer science, and statistics, and I really wanted to get a sense for how people thought about the space. And once I had some ideas, then I made applications to go and do my further studies. And that's how I then got into studying in the UK, staying on, becoming a citizen, and the rest is history.
Very interesting. And that's really inspiring that you decided, like, I'm going to take this step back. Or like kind of one step backwards, but you're now in a completely new environment, which is, it kind of reminds me of it's like an immigrant story where you're like, I've kind of set up, I've done step 1 through whatever 5 here, but if I'm going to tap into this ecosystem, this nascent bioinformatics ecosystem, something might have to give. And that's a very powerful kind of concept. And I maybe not just Gen Z, but for anyone, it's like sometimes a sacrifice needs to be made in order to get to 2 steps forward, maybe 3 steps forward.
It's such a tough thing to learn in life. It really, really is. And you're right. Some of us who are the immigrant story have we've had to learn that. It's like, who are you coming to the UK? You can be like, I have 2 degrees. I have step in line. We have lots of talent.
Exactly.
But I just feel, in an age where we definitely in the work situation, things progress a lot quicker now. There's an expectation for things to progress quicker. There's nothing wrong with taking 2 steps back for a year or 2 to then take multiple steps forward beyond that. And it's another broken record moment I think I like to hop on.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I feel the exact same way, and it's painful in the moment, but it's like always, it's kind of a thing where if you're too micro, you can lose sight of that. It's like on the net, it's like if you zoom out, you're like, oh, this is absolutely a no-brainer. And I love hearing that people are, your early emails and reaching out to just be able to like pick people's brains. Like people were kind enough to open the doors and have those conversations. And I think as scientists, we can sometimes be kind of so focused and like, I don't want to like, ruffle feathers, but most people don't bite. And it's always a good thing to like, what is the worst thing they can say? They can ignore or just say no. But more often not, they say yes, which is beautiful.
No, it was really it was quite something. It's and talking about technology, thinking about how the world evolves. In those days, we didn't have the internet in our homes.
Yeah.
So this was going out to little internet cafes.
Internet cafes.
Dear professor.
Yeah.
I'm writing from an internet cafe. Oh, there goes the connectivity.
Oh, I need to go pay another $10 for an hour of internet.
That's exactly it.
Wait a second. I gotta go to the front desk.
I was exactly it. My brother immigrated to the UK many years after me, and I drive him nuts because there is that particular road where there was an internet cafe that I used to go to all the time, which is now some bougie something or other.
Yeah,
I was like, that's where it all began.
Yeah, that's the origin. There's a plaque, just like Quin was here, and the monumental email that went out.
In my mind, maybe. But no, different times, different technologies.
That's all for this episode of the Biotech Startups podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Quin Wills. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to having you join us again for part 2 of our conversation with Quin. The Biotech Startups podcast is produced by Exceeder. Don't want to miss an episode? Search for the Biotech Startups podcast wherever you get your podcasts and click subscribe. Exceeder provides research labs with equipment leases on founder-friendly terms to support paths to exceptional outcomes. To learn more, visit our website www.exceeder.com. On behalf of the team here at Exceeder, thanks for listening. The Biotech Startups podcast provides general insights into the life science sector through the experiences of its guests. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from the podcast is at the user's own risk. The views expressed by the participants are their own and are not the views of Exceeder or sponsors. No reference to any product, service, or company in the podcast is an endorsement by Exceeder or its guests.